The following public service program is brought to you by the Metropolitan Library System. And now, read about it with your host, BJ Williams.
We have a great show for you today, including a talk with Jim Chastain, who's here to talk about his collection of poetry, Like Some First Human Being. First, however, Phil Talbert is going to share with Doug Benton some travel guides that you can find at your library.
Hello everybody, I'm here once again with Phil Talbert, who is the manager of the Capitol Hill Library. Phil, thanks for coming by.
Thank you for inviting me.
Phil is the library system's resident world traveler. I mean, you really are. You're making funny faces, but you really are. The rest of us consider ourselves lucky if we get to Dallas for the weekend. But you go everywhere. And the book you brought today is one of the mobile travel guide series.
Yes.
This one is for the Northern Plains. Now,
Yes.
what is that? What part of the country is the Northern
Well,
Plains?
according to the ExxonMobil people, that would include Montana, the North and South Dakota, and Wyoming. Those 4 states are included in the Northern Plains areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe not the first places people think of
Right.
to go visit, but these books usually have some kind of special features in
Yes.
them that
Yes.
encourage you to get interested in these
Absolutely.
places. What are the features of this book?
Well, what they have done is, first of all, they have taken the time to do a lot of homework that we would have to do as travelers. They've gone to the hotels and motels and restaurants, and they have done a little bit of screening for us and helped us to decide which ones are the best, and they've given them the stars, the 4 stars, 5 stars, and that kind of thing, so that you kind of know what you're going to experience when you go there. And they give you all kinds of ideas of the tourist attractions that are there to see, the trails to take, the expenses that you might incur, and things of that nature that you want to be prepared for when you go. And so they've done a lot of that work for us, and if we just read through some of those things, will give us a little bit of preparation ready to go when we start to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have all that kind of information in one
Absolutely,
book,
yeah.
so you don't have to take your restaurant guide, and you don't have to
Yes.
take your hotel guide,
Right.
and your guide
Right.
to theme parks, and that sort of thing.
Yes.
What other kind of travel materials? I mean, we're getting into summer. People are starting to think about summer. What other books or CDs or whatever do we have in the library?
Well, in addition to the mobile things, we have the Frommers, the Fodors, and several others too. I can't think of all of them, but not only do we have printed things that show you about travel, but we also have videos and DVDs in the library system as well, which give you, you can actually see the visual things. There are and a lot of illustrations and things like that. They give a lot of history as well and attractions to see, and most of them are current enough that you can be able to see what you may experience when you get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Once again, this is the one edition of the Mobile Travel Guide series, the Northern Plains.
Yes.
And this is advice coming from a guy who actually uses this stuff and gets out on the road. So, Phil, thank you again for coming by and seeing us. We appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for
All
inviting
right.
me.
Thank you. We'll see you again soon.
To celebrate Oklahoma's first 100 years as a state, the Metropolitan Library System has asked George Nye to share some fascinating stories about this great place and its people.
When the Civil War came to the Indian Territory in 1861, many in the Cherokee Nation initially sided with the Confederacy. General Ben McCullough made the Cherokee, Stand Watie, a colonel and asked him to raise a regiment of Cherokees to fight for the South. Now, Watie was born into a prominent Cherokee family, but he had no formal military training or experience, and still he proved to be an able and feared commander. Union soldiers reportedly ran from the field in terror in the face of attacks by the Cherokees and their frightening war cries. One of his men said Watie always led the charge himself, and his men would follow him into the jaws of death. Though Watie and his Cherokee mounted rifles fought with distinction at the important battles of Wilson's Creek and Pea Ridge, most of the war was spent making raids on Union supply lines. He was particularly successful in raiding Union riverboats. And under the cover of darkness, his Indian troops would hold on to the tails of their horses and guide them into the river toward the boats and then jump on board. and their efforts tied up Union troops and supplies which could have been used in other areas. In 1864, he was made a brigadier general, and is believed to be the only Native American to have achieved such a high rank in the war. The Civil War ended for Wadey on June 23, 1865, 2 months after Lee's surrender at Appomattox. Stan Wadey was the last Confederate general to lay down his sword.
Doug Benton is with me, and it's time to share what we have been reading. And
Yeah.
I've been reading a really fascinating book called Rescued, Saving Animals from Disaster. It's written by Alan and Linda Anderson, and they are the founders of Angel Animals Network, inspirational speakers and so on. But this book is actually written about the Katrina disaster. I'm sure all of us remember watching people say, "No, I'm not getting in the helicopter because you won't take my dog."
Yeah.
Or other people crying for weeks afterwards because they did get in the helicopter or the boat and left their animals and never saw them again, and so on. But the Katrina disaster apparently was the largest animal rescue effort the world has ever seen. Thousands of people came to New Orleans to rescue animals. They knew most of the people had been rescued, but they also knew that there were thousands and thousands of starving, lost, wounded dogs, cats, birds, snakes, iguanas, pot-bellied pigs, cows, you name it, and the animals were suffering even more than the people because they were left behind. Several in the tens of organizations that do this sort of thing, rescuing animals, were involved, but lots of people just packed up their bags, got in their car, and drove down to New Orleans. Most of them managed to hook up with organizations and did tremendous work in rescuing animals, which often takes a great deal more patience than rescuing people, because you cannot say to a frightened dog, "No, I'm really here to
Don't
help
bite
you.
me."
Don't bite me, I'm trying to help you." But there were people who were rogue rescuers. There was one guy who complained he had to go get his dog back from the rescuers 10 times because he had stayed in New Orleans, looked after his pet, and people kept rescuing it.
No.
When they saw it, they just, this dog needs help. There were others who just wantonly broke into houses, sometimes with occupants still in them, looking for animals.
Or something.
And some looters took advantage of the fact that you could spray paint SPCA on your car, and the cops would let you go through. But these were just the odd problem. There were really people that did nothing but clean out dog cages to help. We forget. It's real glamorous to tool in a boat around and put animals in there. Somebody's got to clean the cages. Somebody's got to make sure the dogs are walked. Somebody's got to hold the cat down while the vet puts a couple of stitches in it and that sort of thing. Somebody has to arrange for all of that pet food to get to New Orleans, and where do you store it, and how do you keep it from getting eaten by the rats or stolen by somebody. And so there's a tremendous amount that needs to be done besides just the, quote, glamour work. And so they talk about that. They talk about the organizations that you can actually participate in. There's a wonderful chapter there that anybody who owns a pet needs to read, and it's right at the end, and it's how to prepare yourself for disaster and evacuation. What do you need to do to make sure that your pets are as safe as you can make them? And very valuable information. So anybody who's got a pet, I think, ought to read Rescued, Alan and Linda Anderson. You can find it at your library, and I'm sure there are copies at your favorite bookstore as well. Coming up next, we have Teen Corner with Ronna Davis. She'll be talking with Kelly Rhea about a book that our teens will enjoy reading.
Hello, today Ronna Davis from the Edmond Library is here. She is a librarian as well as an excellent programmer. She's brought a young adult book, and this one is called Handbook for Boys. It's by Walter Dean Myers, who's the author of Monster, which is one of my favorites. Tell me about Handbook for Boys.
Well, I was drawn to this story, this particular book, by the cover.
which is usually my main attraction to a book. And also, I love how-to books. So I thought, oh, handbook for boys. Maybe it'll give me some rules for raising boys. And in a sense, it did. It's the story of a young man who's about 16 years old who gets into some serious trouble with the law, and he's given the alternative of working in this man's barbershop, just helping and also, by the way, listening to his wisdom about life. Well, that's kind of because he's a mentor to this young man. During the course of the book, you meet all the characters that come into the barbershop, which kind of reminds one of a famous movie that we've seen lately, but it's not really done so much for comedy's sake as to be instructive. But it's still fun to read.
Mm-hmm. And Duke, I believe, is the character, the mentor, and he has this barbershop, and he's been in this neighborhood for a long time, I think, although he might have had the ability to move out at one time, but he wouldn't leave because that's where his roots are, and he has a group of friends who are there to offer their wisdom to these young men who are working in the barbershop.
Yes, they don't necessarily know that they're performing that function, but they are, and Duke has comments about all of them as far as how they've done in life. Duke's big emphasis is on the importance of the choices that you make during your life and how that's subsequently going to influence what you do in the rest of your life.
Yeah, it was, there's one particular quote in here that I really, really appreciated, and it's Jimmy, the young character, and he says that what this person who's in trouble needs to do is to stop dealing with how he feels and figure out how he can change the way he's living so he can create a better situation.
Mm-hmm. How practical is that?
Oh, pearls of knowledge.
That's right.
So it was good for a grown-up to see, oh yes, what are my goals? How can I instill that in my 10-year-old? And I'd like for him to read Handbook for Boys. It's by Walter Dean Myers. And thank you, Ronna.
Thank you.
And we can find it at our local bookstore or at our favorite library.
Doug and I are back, and Doug is clutching a book in his hands.
Yes, I went more mainstream than I usually do this week.
Very oddly.
With a thriller by James Patterson and Michael Ledwidge. It's called Step on a Crack. It's Patterson's latest. He seems to be able to turn one of these things out every couple of weeks. Not that bad. But he has been working with co-authors lately, and so I suspect that maybe he's allowing somebody else to do a lot of the lifting for him. I wanted to take a look at one of his books because he's one of the best-selling writers of our time, and one of the worst reviewed. I don't think I've ever seen a positive review of one of Patterson's books. So I thought, well, let me find out. Let me see what's going on.
Is he going to get a good review this time?
Not particularly, no. Although there are some things about this book that I like very much. I thought it had a clever premise, starting point. Now, it's clever in the way that somebody who's just starting to write thrillers might come up with, but the idea is a very popular former First Lady of the United States dies in a public restaurant. We've discovered that she's been poisoned, but what the criminals are wanting to do is that they know she's going to have a huge funeral, and what they want to do is hold hostage everybody who shows up at the church. So this gives Patterson and his co-author a chance to have a little fun with some celebrity types. I mean, there's an obvious Robin Williams who shows up for the funeral. There's an obvious Paris Hilton who shows up for the funeral. There are some obvious Kennedys who show up for the funeral, and they're all kidnapped by these guys. Okay, I thought that was kind of neat. And what it reminded me of, actually, was a writer who was the king of the thriller writers in the 60s and 70s, a man named Alistair MacLean.
Oh, yes.
Every one of his books went to the movies. I mean, he was really big, bigger than Patterson, really. And that storyline kind of reminded me of some of MacLean's later, lesser novels. But what I didn't like about the book, it really is, some of the writing is pretty sloppy in here, and it's the kind of thing you wonder, why didn't an editor catch that?
His chief detective is a man named Michael Bennett. He's on the police force. Bennett has an ill wife who's in the hospital and 10 children. Okay, this is what he says. Saint was a pretty trite term, I know, but as I sat there alone gazing at my wife's accomplishments, that was the word that kept popping into my mind. Well, what popped into my mind was saint isn't a term. It's a word, and he later refers to it as a word, but one word isn't a term. The narrative, third-person narrative, has exclamation points popping up all over it. It's really kind of silly. This is a book you check out from your library. You do not pay $28, which is the cost for it. Libraries are real good for that. Take advantage of the savings.
Absolutely.
Step on a crack. James Patterson.
Thanks, Doug. Coming up next, I turn the tables on MJ Van Deventer of the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum and ask her what she's been reading. MJ, it's great to have you here and talking about a book you've read instead of talking to people who've read books.
Well, it's a fun book. It's called The Front Porch. It's by Anne Herner, and it's really a delightful book. You know how much I love interior design books.
Absolutely.
I like to read them, I like to write them, but this is really a fun book.
Now, it's actually exterior design, isn't it?
It is.
And it's something that I think most people no longer use. Everybody used to live on their front porch in the
Right.
summer, but
Not now.
Not now.
It's sort of a vanishing part of American homes, really.
but obviously people are still putting front porches on their homes.
Oh, elaborate front porches.
Ah.
And sort of the essence of this book is that you can tell a lot about a person by their front porch.
I am sorry to hear that.
And I probably shouldn't have said it because on my front porch I have a table, an old trunk, an old school desk, and I have 3 Christmas trees still lighted.
Oh dear.
Yes,
but,
oh dear.
But they're very discreet Christmas trees. MJ.
Well, yes, they are. They're all different sizes. But the porch actually began in Greece,
Oh,
which
really?
I found quite interesting, and then was transported to America.
Now this was something that worked its way, I think, from Greece to Rome and then
To America.
to America. And obviously people still build porches and, as you said, elaborately decorate, but they don't use them.
Right.
So
It's all for show.
All for show. But there are some lovely examples here in this book.
Oh, some great examples, and some great Victorian examples, and romantic and Italian-style porches, and big columns, and wonderful furniture, and plants, and it really is a fun book to give you ideas for what you could do with your own porch, even though you're never going to sit on it.
Right. Well, I would think a lot of these ideas you could use in your veranda in the backyard, which is where everybody tends to go now. So it would be useful for anybody who wants their...
Easily transportable.
Yeah. Well, and I would think if they just put some ceiling fans on some of those porches, they might...
They might actually use them.
might actually use them. Now, this covers the entire country, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. There's some wonderful examples from Santa Fe, Adobe front porches, and there are examples from all over the country.
Well, it sounds like a really great book. And the title again?
The Front Porch.
It sounds great, and thank you very much, MJ.
Thank you.
With me today is Jim Chastain. This is his second appearance on Read About It. Like many writers, he is a multitasking person. He does film reviews, he writes poetry, he writes prose, and he also has a day job, which is with the Court of Criminal Appeals, is
That's
it
correct.
not? And you have a band as well?
Well, it's my son's band. I'm the manager.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're, well, that's your band. I mean, you're looking after it.
Refuge. They're a lot more popular than I am.
Well, I have to ask, when do you find time to write poetry?
Poetry is something I do in the morning whenever I can, or it happens a lot of times on vacation when I just am looking out and trying to figure out what's going on in my world. It's the way I journal, and I really have, sometimes just like any journaling, you can do it on a daily basis, and other times you're too busy. I'm right now finding it to be looking for more time to do that because it's something that I love to do, but I journal poetry in the morning. It kind of lets me try to make sense of life.
Yeah. Well, have you figured it out yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. Well, if you ever do, let me know.
I was hoping you would tell me.
No, I've got a few years on you, but I'm still working on that too. You had a poem that I think is a very good example of that journaling and trying to draw things together that I would like for you to read for us.
Okay, this is called Coffee Moments. It's short. Coffee Moments. It's not about the coffee. We meet there, yes, and drink as though our lives depend upon it. But Java's just an excuse to gather, to share a part of who we are, to stay reasonably connected. We searched for paradise and never found it. Yet here, with cup in hand, perhaps we're a latte closer.
Very good. Now, the title of the book, which I have yet to mention, is Like Some First Human Being. And there's a story that goes with that title.
Well, I was trying to put all my poems together and come up with an idea for a book, and how do you do that? And I was somewhat scratching my head about it, and I went to this artist retreat in Wimberley, Texas, and I had categorized my poems into 4 categories. One was about looking out at nature, and one was about life, what's life all about, and one was about love, the things you love, and especially, I'm married, so, you do write some sort of things like that. And the last one was loss, and just the loss poems. We all have loss in our lives, and that's the categories all my poems were falling under. And so I had this long line of poems. I was thinking, okay, well, here's the 4 categories. How do I bring them all together? And I just was having a problem, and I went to this artist retreat, picked out a book kind of randomly off a library shelf, and it was Rilke, Letters to a Young Poet. And literally on the second page, as I'm reading the second page of that book, he's explaining to a young poet about what to write about as a poet. And he basically says to write about these 4 things, which came out to be the exact same categories in my book. And that was just kind of a very weird moment. But part of that quote has that line, try like some first human being to do this. And so I used that kind of to bring the book together in those 4 categories.
Was it difficult to cut down the poems that go in the book? I'm sure you've written a lot more than this.
What I did, it really wasn't that difficult, because I put them all in those categories, but we read over them and you think, these are better. And so I quickly had what I thought were 10 poems for each category, and then trying to come up with what I kind of like to be even for some reason, and so I wanted to have a certain number in each one, and so I think we came to 15 or something like that. But finding those others, some of the last choices were hard. Which one was less bad than the others? But I think some of the other choices were easier. Just the poems I like.
Well, the first poem that you put in the book is one that struck me particularly, and I just indicated a few others that we might talk about if we get a chance to. But this is Deer Diary, which is again in the Texas Hill Country on vacation when you looked out and saw a deer.
It took place the exact same weekend.
Oh, did it?
And I woke up in the morning in this really nice room, and I was wondering, because it was dark in there, and was wondering if it was light outside, and how late it was. And I opened up the window, and there's a deer just staring straight at me. And it's this fabulous sort of retreat that I was at, and I felt like the deer looking at me and saying, "What are you doing here? You don't belong here." And I'm just reflecting on that. What am I doing here? And the last line says, "Perhaps this brand new morning knows." And we kind of look at each day like that. About you have self-doubt, but then you think, what's today got to offer?
Yeah. Now, is that your approach when you are writing poetry? Do you just wait for inspiration, or do you ever just sit down and say, I really need to write about this specific thing?
I really don't ever sit down with any thought of, sometimes an idea will come to me, I'll think that'll be the poem that's going to be, but generally I'll sit down wherever I'm sitting and I'll just think of is what comes into my mind, and I'll try and come up with a line and then go from there. I do a rough draft, and I leave it. I leave the rough draft there till much later in the year. I'll come back and I'll edit through all the poems I've written in the year and try them, make them better, improve them. And then after that's done, I share them with some friends to read at the end of the year. Say, what do you think about this? Is this just trash? And they'll tell me what some of the ones they like and which ones they don't, and I'll try to improve. And there's some that I just literally love from the first moment, and then there's some that I just never can get to work, and you just have to get rid of them, and it hurts. But you can't carry around all the baggage of bad poems that you've written, or
Right. Well, I wish we could take that approach to a lot of things in our life besides poetry. Speaking of that, you've got Shelf Life. That really appealed to me, the one about finishing the manuscript.
That's a poem that just talking about how you want to be a writer, and you have all these things that you've written in your life, and it's still such a risk to share what you've written with somebody else, because they may reject it and say, yeah, that's great, we don't like you. And so this is a poem just about somebody who's written all these things and then afterwards goes and puts them away on a place on their shelf, and no one else ever sees them. And I think that we all face that. You don't want to be rejected, and you think, I want to be a writer, but how much are you going to put yourself out there? Right. If you do that, then you may, your dreams may be crushed.
Right. Your friends may be really honest with you.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, Jim, for having the courage to put those poems out there so we can enjoy them.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks very much. Jim Chastain has been here sharing with us some of his poems from Like Some First Human Being. You can find this at your bookstore and your favorite library.
Hi, I'm Donna Morris, Executive Director of the Metropolitan Library System. 2007 will mark Oklahoma's centennial year. 100 years is a long time, but public libraries have been part of this community since the very beginning. And we're still exactly the same as we've been all along, your primary source for information and entertainment. The delivery methods are different now than in the early days. Today we provide free wireless access, free internet access, DVDs, CDs, free programming for people of all ages, along with the traditional books, magazines, and newspapers. But what hasn't changed is our dedication to helping you find exactly what you need. Librarians continue to be the guides to the up-to-date world of information, and our librarians at MLS are the best in the business. So visit your neighborhood MLS library soon, and as they say in the world of libraries, come check us out.
Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.